Oh my gosh, it's the Society Sound Off, the freeform section of the No Name Cinema Society. We are back. It's very exciting. Hi, I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Betzler, here on our fourth section of the evening. Start off the evening talking about a current film, Bridge of Spies, then segue to our indie spotlight of the night, The Joneses from 2010. Just had an intense battle on our classic film of the night, Apocalypse Now, and now it's time for our freeform section where we just talk about whatevs. And that's the Society Sound Off. First, my co-hosts, let's start with the normal-looking Dave Joseph. How you doing, Dave?
I am just marveling at that intro. That was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. It's hard to tell whether or not you're being facetious. In the meantime,
I loved it.
In the spirit of Halloween, fully gathered, ladies and gentlemen, our Prince of Darkness himself, J Money.
JB.
Happy
Halloween, JB.
Happy Halloween once again. For the third time this evening. Thank you very much for the Happy Halloween greetings. And you were waiting in that pose for a long time, so I
incredibly comfortable.
Oh, good. So you guys are kicking off the sound off with some. First of all, Davey, do you want to go first with all just like stuff that you've seen, or are you going to jump into your horror talk?
No, let's. You know, I was thinking we'll let J Money kick off the horror talk, and you give me a look there, J Money. Let's. I can do either, but I'm happy to do more horror. So let's go ahead and to throw it to J Money.
But you do have stuff that you want to talk about separate from horror.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. J Money, do you want your title or not yet?
I guess we can. I guess we could just jump into that if you guys want to. Oh yes.
No, I don't know what you've got planned, so you got to walk me through it.
Do it.
You can throw out the title. We'll just jump into my little thing here. It's time to talk about who would win in a fight.
Society. These gentlemen want to know who would win in a fight. And if you're watching, feel free to comment. Facebook, YouTube. I mean, if you did it on Twitter, I probably wouldn't see it right away, but that doesn't matter. Let us, I'm sure you guys have some opinions on whatever it is they're going to talk about, because I don't watch horror movies.
That's true. JB is allowed to abstain from this discussion, as he may not have an opinion about who would win in a fight, even though he is an incredibly competitive person, and he might have an opinion about who might win in a fight. I think it's a question as old as time itself, and I think that Davey Joe would back me up on this. As long as horror movies have existed, people have asked themselves, who would win in a fight? Which monster among us would take it all? Which monster among us would rise to the top and become the king of said battles?
I hope to God you've got a bracket going.
Well, I don't so much have a bracket as much as I have a couple different scenarios that I want to throw out to you guys. I guess specifically to Davey Joe, but again, JB.
Sounds like a bracket.
There's no necessarily ranking, because every monster is special in their own way, JB.
Well, how do you determine the matchups if you don't have a bracket?
Well, let's go to the first matchup. The first matchup I will pose to you is between Chucky from Child's Play and the evil clown doll from Poltergeist.
Wow.
How do you feel about this matchup?
That's easy.
That's easy.
Oh, Chucky ends him. Chucky ends him.
Chucky ends it? Why do you think that Chucky ends it?
Kills him. Chucky in a romp.
So you feel like Chucky's a fighter?
Chucky's a fighter. I mean, look, you're gonna. Here's the deal. There's a certain paranormal advantage that the clown is gonna have, but man, Chucky, forget about it.
Yeah, but I'd like to point out that evil clown doll is an evil clown doll, so by default also has a fair amount of paranormal advantage.
Okay.
Let's just say, okay, Davey Joe.
Yeah.
Which one freaked you out more when you were a kid?
Chucky.
Really? When did you see Poltergeist?
I was a young kid when I saw Poltergeist, but
yeah.
Chucky was scary, man. Chucky killed people, killed them.
See, I always thought Chucky was funny. I didn't necessarily think he was scary. I enjoyed Chucky's hijinks, even if they were murderous in their intention.
Well, you got a lot campier and sillier, I think, as it went on. I mean, it was always silly, but
It was always a little silly. Although it's funny, I actually
have sex with Jennifer Tilly in one of the movies.
he did.
Interesting.
I believe that was that Seed of Chucky, I believe.
Is that Seed of Chucky? I stopped paying attention after 2.
What?
I know. I'm not a purist about Chucky. I'm not. Although apparently there's a new version of it on Netflix now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Rise of Chucky or something. I don't know. It's supposed to be interesting. But
must viewing.
But just personal anecdote-wise, I had a clown doll as a child, and then I saw Poltergeist, and then that clown doll disappeared from my room because I was scared senseless for a long period of time. But to be fair, what parent thought it was a good idea to put like a nearly full-sized version of a clown sitting in a chair next to my bed at night? I ask you that. Is that a sensible thing to do as a parent? I don't think so.
I'm sure they got a lot of entertainment out of that.
Well, let's hope that they did, because for me, all it created was like suffocating situations underneath covers deep in my bed. So I'm going to have to go with Clown Doll just because that's the thing that scared me more.
Okay.
JP, do you have any opinion?
No.
No, you do not. Excellent. Let's go on to the second matchup, which is, the birds from the birds versus the bees from the swarm. Now, interesting side note, the swarm also stars a Fred MacArthur, who was in another feature we talked about this evening, earlier in the day.
Double Indemnity.
Double Indemnity. That's exactly true. Davy Joe.
Oh my God! Here we go. I have to cop to not having seen the Swarm, but I could talk about just the idea of bees. Bees, man, ow.
Yeah.
You know, birds. Yeah. Bees sound scarier to me.
And ladies and gentlemen, Davy Joe is our linguist in the group.
I might go with bees with you on this. It's just that I think that birds are maybe more disorganized, and that might work in their favor. Like, bees are a hive mind, and they're definitely going to work against you together. Birds are kind of like independent creators. They're sort of on their own. They're sort of the Han Solo of the flying world. So I feel like they might have some creative hijinks up their sleeves that you don't even know about.
Yeah.
That's on the note. You're not going to go by that. I just want to talk about the birds and the bees with you specifically. That's really the whole point of that one.
And before we move on to the next one, J Money.
Yeah.
Can I just direct you for a second?
Sure.
Next time you pull one up, can you lean to your left when you pull up the graphic?
How's that?
Well, I can't tell without the graphic. I just want to be able to see your face more. The
Really?
graphics
That's the nicest thing you've ever said to me, JP.
Sweet. I just want to be able to clear, like, the graphics are blocking your face. So just lean to your left.
It's semi-intentional, trust me, but that's okay. That's fine.
Are you sure about this, JB? I mean,
are you sure about that? All right, so what did we settle on this? I think we're going bees on this one, right?
Yes, yeah. I
think bees it is.
Unanimous. Next
up, The Thing from John Carpenter's The Thing
versus
The Blob from 1988's The Blob, whichever Blob. It doesn't really even matter. I just happen to think that they fell into the same time frame. What do you think?
They're also both remakes.
They are definitely both all remakes. I've seen actually all the versions at this point.
The Thing. I'll go with The Thing.
Why do you go Thing?
The Thing. The Thing that now. I like the original a lot more. Which I think is not something that people usually say, but I don't know. It's just the remoteness of Antarctica and all that. I always thought it was creepier. So that's right. It just feels like you're more stranded. You're more. It was more terrifying of an experience.
Yeah, but let's be clear here. We're talking about one monster versus another in a fight.
In a fight, all right. I still go with The Thing.
Wow, that's interesting. Upper advantage on The Thing. I mean, I'm also, you know what? I'll say that I respect the fact that you say you like the original more. I actually like the original quite a lot. I would say I almost like them probably relatively equally well. I think that they're very different movies about different things, even though they are the movie about the same thing. So I understand where you're going to go with that comment, and again, I respect that. My thinking on this specifically, though, is that these are both monsters. Wait, first off, JB, do you have an opinion? JB does not have an opinion. JB's not here. So my opinion, my feeling is that the Thing and the Blob are both creatures that consume their prey, right? They're both ones that kind of morph and take over the form of the people that they're attacking. Even the Blob actually literally consumes it by simply kind of grabbing around it, and the Thing kind of becomes part of the same thing. If they were going to fight each other, I propose that they would actually become one being together, an ultimate super being called the Bling. What do you think? Right?
Yeah.
That solves everything right there, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I'm glad that we are of the same agreement on this one.
Bling.
The Bling.
This segment is going downhill fast.
All right, number 4. We're gonna go with some at least one classic movie action.
Leave a few minutes for Davey's movies too. So like maybe 4 more minutes on this.
I'm just going to talk about one movie, so you can take a little more.
Frankenstein, the classic Frankenstein monster, versus Charlie McGee, a.k.a. Little Drew Barrymore from Firestarter, circa 1980 something.
It's actually 1979, I think.
Is it Firestarter? I thought it was 80 something.
You know what? I think I'm thinking Carrie, 1976. So.
Oh yeah, no, Carrie. So here's why I'm even suggesting this pairing. As we all know, Frankenstein does not like fire. Fire, not good, right? But he does like little girls, because a little girl is the only one he met as a foe in Frankenstein. This creates a serious dilemma in this matching. Where is Frankenstein going to land on this? I don't know. I'd like to hear Davy Joe's opinion.
I think the
Firestarter. I'm interjecting. Firestarter is 1984.
84. I think that the fire is going to be the bigger problem. I think that she wins.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on this one. I think that fire trumps everything, and that Frankenstein is actually a gentle giant, misunderstood, and he would succumb to the flames, unfortunately, because of his own love for, innocence and purity, whatever. Either way, Charlie McGee, little Drew Barrymore, she is someone you don't want to reckon with either then or now. Last matchup.
I just want to interject. I also have a weakness for little girls. Go ahead.
Oh. I don't know if you want to say that on air, because the FBI will be coming soon.
Oh my God! All right.
All right, last one. Here we go.
Davy Joe's our lawyer, and he's now like worried.
You can advise
Not your lawyer, man.
Not anymore, at least. You're screwed now. All right, Michael Myers from Halloween versus Captain James T. Kirk from Wrath of Khan, the most fired up Kirk you can get. Why did I choose this pairing? David Joe, do you know why?
No, why?
The mythology behind the mask of Halloween?
Oh, that's right. That's right. How could I forget that?
It is essentially James T. Kirk versus himself, as the mask from Halloween was, in fact, a cheap version of a James T. Kirk mask that they used, cut apart a little bit, spray painted, and put on the killer. So I'd like to think of this as a sort of a Kirk versus Kirk battle in general, on a supernatural scale. Who would win? I don't know. That's a really hard matchup.
Well, I think, James T. Kirk's got the two-handed chop, so you can't go against the two-handed chop.
This is true. Kirk also has a lot of different sci-fi stuff on the side. He has the ability to travel time at some point, I believe. He does also meet God. I'm going to go with Kirk on this one as well. It just seems like he has more aces up his sleeve than, a supernatural killer that we never really see. JB?
Come on, JB, you got to have a thought there.
You have an opinion for James T. Kirk, do you know?
My thought is, yeah.
Well, thus ends Who Would Win in a Fight, Halloween edition special monster mashup. Thank you very much for participating. Your turn.
There it is. Who would win in a fight? Horror movie edition, aka the Monster Mash. We didn't get. I thought maybe there might be some like Godzilla versus Hong Kong action going on.
Well, that'll have to wait till next Halloween, JB.
Dracula versus the Invisible Man, Frankenstein versus Bride of Frankenstein. A lot of options there. Fan of the Opera is mixed in there.
Everybody already knows how those would end.
Is that true? They're not battles. But you guys know that Godzilla versus Hong Kong is coming to a Cineplex near you.
I have heard that. I'm excited.
Are you actually excited?
No, I'm not actually excited.
I didn't think so. I did not see the Gareth Edwards Godzilla. I assume you did, Davey.
I saw it. It was good. It was good.
No, no. There's no possible way.
Are you talking about the one last summer with
Yeah.
It was good. It was good.
Oh, I'm going to disagree with that
I'm
as well.
skeptical.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. And that's a good segue to Davy Joe. The floor is yours. No diatribe, right? You promise?
No diatribe. I'm just too happy. I think. All right, well, real quick, one line. If you haven't seen Sicario, you do it. Jesus, don't delay. It's amazing. But given our Halloween atmosphere here, I wanted to see both the horror movies out there before the show. I wanted to see Crimson Peak and Green Inferno. I didn't get to see Crimson Peak due to the scheduling snafu, but I did catch Green Inferno. What's that?
There was no way it was ever going to be on Thursday.
Maybe it was my snafu. Anyway, Green Inferno. I'll give you the premise. There are these kids, and they're going to the jungle to try and save the rainforest, and there's a plane crash in a really bad part of the jungle, and a lot of them end up getting eaten by cannibals.
Spoiler.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's pretty well known at this point. I mean, look, I think I saw in the credits Greg Nicotero, who you may know from Walking Dead, being involved in costume design, and basically the movie is incredibly gruesome. People getting eaten alive, and but there's definitely a tension. It's just this horrible, like, it's gonna happen, and then you just kind of like, oh my god. And the person I went with, it's fun. I mean, it's definitely. Was
it a female that you went with?
Yes. And
Good pick.
What's her name?
No. So anyway, it.
And how is your mom doing these days?
Oh.
Slam.
Wow. All right. I hear you. No. It's definitely the tension's there, and this is the one thing I wanna give it props for this, because it is a horror movie, a modern horror movie that is devoid of absolutely any jump scares. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but I just said it. So, I mean, it's really kind of just true to the art, It's true to the cannibal art.
The cannibal. Yeah.
But anyway, all right. So
I hear there's an exhibition on that at MoMA coming up in December.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of those Italian horror movies.
You talking about Dario Argento films?
Well, I mean, those are a little more well known, but I am talking about the cannibal Holocaust, zombie Holocaust, those kinds of things. Anyway, they have their following, but
Wow.
I'll let it. I'll get to you, JB. What's up?
How did it compare to other Eli Roth films specifically?
This is the first one I've seen. I haven't even seen Hostel, to be honest.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I've heard from the folks that are into these things that it does not compare favorably. But
I personally don't like Eli Roth, so that's maybe something that will go to my favor.
Oh yeah, no, I mean
Your voice sounded very spooky there. There was some feedback, and it's like you had like an effect on it.
It's an effect.
J Money, I think you would like this movie. I think you would like this movie, but it's a pill.
It's a pill.
It's a pill. That. All right, JB, it's all yours, man. Take it away.
Before we go, do we want J Money to put the mask on full? I mean, he's just wearing it like a hat.
I really think he should at some point.
There it is. Now we're cooking with gas.
You look good.
All right. Before the show gets too nerdy, let's do the top 5 Spielberg movies of all time. God, that was so nerdy, that whole segment. I feel like I need to take a shower after that. But
really, JB, you're going to talk about Spielberg and you're talking about having nerdy segments?
Yeah, no. I mean, but there's level of nerdiness. I feel like that was far down a different nerdy path.
Maybe 2 things. It's Halloween, and also, how can you completely just dismiss an entire genre of film? That's just ridiculous to me. Like, you're an auteur.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm a wuss, too, so, I mean, I think that's a big part of it. I've embraced that about myself. I acknowledge where I'm going. So anyway, back to the Spielberg top 5. Now, because we're running out, because we only have about, I don't want to waste all night on this. This was actually, when I talked about maybe doing spy movies or Cold War movies based on Bridge of Spies, but Davy Joe wanted the Spielberg top 5, and actually it was actually pretty easy. In fact, all these 5 are probably the obvious choices. And they're all on my top 100 favorite films of all time. So, in that sense, it was fairly easy to pick. So we're going to start with what is my number 98 favorite film of all time, and a film that we talked about before on the broadcast, and that is Jaws. I think it's a taut, effective thriller, inventive, smart, and I think people often forget, and this came up in the Bridge of Spies broadcast, people often forget how good the performances are in this film. I mean, particularly, like, people remember the Indianapolis speech. Here's a picture of that with Quint, the USS Indianapolis speech, and Quint was nominated for an Academy Award for this performance, Robert Shaw here. But even Dreyfuss and Scheider, everybody's really, really great in this movie. And the other big star of the movie, I think, is Bill Butler's cinematography. Also sort of underrated. It's like, some of the scenes are beautiful, and they were challenging to film. Like, it was it's always challenging to shoot on water, and like, it's beautiful and sharp. And I mean, like, we've talked about it before on this broadcast in terms of the bracket, so I know you guys are both fans of this particular film.
Absolutely. And it's a horror movie, so good job.
Good job.
I think of it more of a suspense thriller. I don't think it's a horror movie.
It has a monster.
It is a straight-up
monster-driven horror movie.
Okay, well, I never really thought about it that way. I will say, however, that my sister, after seeing it, never ever went in the ocean or a pool ever again.
Wow.
Yeah, it's scary. It's a scary movie.
Yeah, I mean, but it does have those jump scares that you're talking about in the last one. And I almost feel like it invented those scares to some degree. Like, some of those moments were so well crafted in the editing point.
Yeah, maybe it did. Maybe
I'm getting feedback again. Is that you, Davey? I'm getting echo.
I don't know.
Okay. Number 4 on my list of all-time favorite Spielberg movies, Close Encounters of the Third Kind from 1977. It was nominated for Best Picture. I think, it's surprisingly original. Visually stunning, emotionally uplifting, extremely intelligent, plausible in spite of itself. I think that's part of its strength. Because like, anything with aliens you feel like is implausible, but it makes it feel like it could happen in the real world. I also think it's extremely character driven, and one of the tenets of Spielberg movies, and again we talked about this too in the other show, is moments of awe. Like that picture is just one of them. And Bridge of Spies, you talked about the U2 plane moment. There's these moments of just like to take your breath away in these movies. So Close Encounters, gentlemen, anything you said struck a chord?
Great movie.
Yeah, I also really enjoy Close Encounters. I don't think Jaws goes ahead of it for me, and I honestly think that there are points in Close Encounters where Spielberg shows us a little bit too much. I'd prefer him not to, but overall, I have a very soft spot in my heart for this movie.
I mean, one thing that I think makes it different is this character-driven aspect of it. You know, like this man dealing with what he thinks might be like it's this obsession that he might be going insane, and like that's an aspect that disappears from Spielberg movies. After this movie, he doesn't like come back to this sort of level of character detail until maybe Schindler's List.
Yeah.
I mean, like maybe Color Purple a little bit, but I mean, like that's not a movie I enjoy as much, so I sort of skip over that. But to some degree maybe Empire of the Sun, but this movie like combines the Spielberg all with the character drivenness and which is why I think it's important.
All right.
Moving right along, and so here we go. For 15 years, it was the highest-grossing movie of all time. And you know, in the early '80s, it was the movie that everybody talked about, and it's hard for me, you know, like in this movie, it's all about the emotional experience. I mean, you know, emotional engagement. It's so satisfying. It is my favorite score of all time. Well, what I didn't get to talk about in the broadcast on Bridge of Spies is I did not like the score for Bridge of Spies, and was frustrated, and I couldn't believe it because the scores in Spielberg movies are so strong until I found out it actually was not John Williams who did the score for Bridge of Spies. It was Thomas Newman. I assume Mr. Williams was busy with some movie coming out in December, something that Abrams is doing. I'm not sure. But
I feel like there's music for that already, though.
I think he's probably doing some additional music. My gut. But anyway, so, I mean, E.T., it also features, I think, one of the best child performances of all time. I think Henry Thomas is transcendent. Drew Barrymore, again, here we go again with Drew Barrymore, second time in this broadcast. We talk about Drew Barrymore. Tonight is all about Drew Barrymore and Frederick Murray. Also, great use of iconography, and it's so well edited. Michael Kahn is his editor, and it's, you know, like the editing earns the emotion. Editing times the score, like, and talk about rewatchability. It's a movie that affects me every time, and yeah, I'm obviously a real big fan.
It makes me cry. It just hits me, man.
I think that takes a lot of effort. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like we need a separate segment to talk about performances in Spielberg movies because they just don't get credit. I mean, how good are these kids in this movie?
No, they're exceptional. You know? Yeah, absolutely.
And I also want to call attention to one of the great sequences because it refers to a different movie that we've talked about in our St. Patrick's Day broadcast. The cross. We talked about the editing a little bit, but the cross cutting between when E.T.'s watching the television, he's watching The Quiet Man.
Right.
Which is a film we talked about back in March. E.T.'s watching Quiet Man at home, and Elliot's feeling his feelings in the classroom, and the frogs. Such an amazing sequence. Inventive, brilliant, visual, and powerful, like, and funny. Like, it's everything. It's everything you want movies to be, and that's what Spielberg, when he's at his best, he can bring it all. Jenny Money, you haven't said much about E.T.
I actually have some interesting experiences with E.T. It was the first movie I ever saw in the theater, and I had nightmares for years about E.T. So, you know, that didn't affect me well as a child, so I kind of avoided it for a while. And then in grade school, I actually had a massive project that we all did in the 7th grade about biblical allusions, and we did a giant project on comparing it to the Old and New Testament. And there is quite a fair amount of allusions you can make. I mean, there's a very, big obvious one about a being that comes from the heavens that has the ability to heal people, dies, and then is resurrected on a table and ascends to heaven.
Yeah, and can heal people.
And I said that, and it's the kind of thing where it created, that project for me opened my eyes up to the idea of what you can accomplish in a movie to begin with, and it also forced me to relook at the movie in general. And since then, I have watched it, again as an adult, and I've also changed my feelings about it. I enjoy it a fair amount. I don't think I have the esteem for it that you do, JB, but in general, I do really like the movie, and there's something that's very touching about it. To David Joe's point of view, a point before, I also will tear up definitely at every point I'm supposed to, because it is a very emotionally tugging movie, and it's very successful because of that.
And I don't think it is manipulative. Which is, like always the danger when you're going for the heartstrings. And
Sure,
like
absolutely.
particularly early in his career, he's very good about that. He walks that line and like hits every note.
Yeah.
Like every note's perfect. I feel like in these movies.
I think that's something that Spielberg used to do really well at this time period, was showing families in discord and showing families that are kind of broken apart or missing out the corners.
Family. One of the great things that I heard about Close Encounters is because like his dad was a scientist and his mother was a musician, and so that's seen at the end of Close Encounters when they're talking to each other.
Yeah.
Like James Lipton inside the Actors Studio, he said, and Spielberg hadn't realized this. That's your parents finally communicating, he said.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so beautiful, and it just shows, like, like how personal some of these early films were for him.
Yep. Absolutely.
And why it affects us all, because these are universal things, like these familial issues, are universal.
Yep, absolutely.
Except for Davy Joe, apparently is, close with his mom, and he brings her to the movies with her.
Oh, you got a number one or what? What's going on?
And crickets. I'm still on number 2, man. E.T. was number 3.
Oh, all right.
So we're moving into my top 20 all time, and this might get conversation going. It's Spielberg's only Best Picture winner. I feel like it's an obvious choice. Many people would consider it the best film of the 90s. I consider it the 3rd best film of the 90s. But regardless, I think it's an astounding achievement. We talked about it, a little bit when we talked about Bridge of Spies earlier tonight. Obviously, this is Schindler's List. And I feel like this is his man-child. Like, Spielberg is often like the man-child director, dealing with these, childish issues, families broken apart. This is a man growing up, facing his heritage. There's a lot of backlash for this film about, turning the Holocaust into suspenseful moments, like the shower scene. Michael Haneke, the director of More, called Spielberg out about that shower scene, and he felt that was manipulative, how turning that into like a suspenseful moment. I don't buy that. I feel like I feel like it gets underneath fear. Like these people didn't know, how long they were going to live. Is it going to be tomorrow that I die? Is it going to be a week? Is it going to be a month? Like, I think it gets to the core of this, this underlying fear that they had, throughout this internment period. I think it's a surprisingly gritty. The other thing about it is it's so detailed. I mean, so many details in this film. It's just so cinematic in that way. And it's also emotionally engaging, but in a totally different way. It's not uplifting the way that E.T. is. Like it's emotional on a different level. And like you talked about in Bridge of Spies, like two characters, Neeson and Eamon Spirith, played by Ralph Fiennes. Like they're complex individuals, and they're on these paths, and I think it does a nice job of balancing them. And it's totally interesting point of view to see this Ralph Fiennes character's perspective on things. I think it's very powerful in that regard. And you talk about performances. I mean, I think those two like if I had to do a top 5 performances, both of these performances would be in the top 5 Spielberg performances. I think Fiennes and Neeson. And this is the film that introduced the world. Mute yourself, Davy Joe, if you can. This is the film that introduced the world to Ralph Fiennes. He was unknown until this point. So again, speaking to Spielberg's ability to cast well, which is another common theme that he doesn't get a lot of credit for. So I know you guys have some feelings about Schindler's List. While Davy Joe's muted, I'll let you go first.
I think that I'm not going to disagree with you about the importance of this film. I'm not going to say that it's a bad film in any way. It's not. It's a good film. I think there are parts of it that I find a little treacle, honestly. And I think that was probably the first time I went to a Spielberg movie and felt that way. And you actually had a very specific scene that you started by showing, which I always point to as one thing that the
red outfit.
What's that?
The color of red, the splash of red.
The girl with the red coat that appeared periodically throughout the film. That was a trick that for me felt a little too contrived, especially for the material that he was dealing with. And you know, for me, that was a point where I started to think, well, you know, maybe there's a little bit too much flash in here, and not enough, you know, not enough. I don't know, seriousness about the subject matter. I mean, I understand the criticism about the shower scene. I also agree with you. I don't think that it's a founded, you know, criticism. But I think that you know, a lot of people made a big deal about this being Spielberg reckoning with certain aspects of his past they never dealt with before, about him reckoning with being an adult. I mean, this movie and Jurassic Park came out the same year, as I recall, and I remember a lot of people talking about the duality of those kind of things, about how it represented, you know, Spielberg that we've known, and this was kind of the step forward. And I feel like that's what you are seeing here. You're seeing a transition in Spielberg's case specifically. For me, the standout in this movie is Ralph Fiennes, like you're just saying. I think he's fantastic. I think his character is fantastic. And I don't mean that in terms of him being a Nazi. I just think that he does a fantastic job portraying, you know, a man that's ultimately twisted and dark, but a little bit more than just your basic standard boilerplate Nazi. You know, I appreciate the movie. It's not my top favorite movie from the 90s, but it's a very important film one way or the other.
You gonna mute yourself, Davy Joe? Your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, I kind of fall in line with you, JB. I think it's just you know, it's an incredibly powerful movie, and it's hard for me to step away from the subject matter and kind of look at these types of movies critically, because I just get so involved and emotionally, I respond so strongly emotionally that it's, you know, I mean, I can't even really do it. But it's obviously a movie that I was completely, you know, it changed me. I mean, it had an effect on me, and I don't. I don't know. I can't ever like include it in a list or even I can't even place it even in the top Spielberg movies, because I just can't. It's hard for me to hold a critical eye at all. My gut feeling is that it's probably the best Spielberg movie, and as good as any movie of the 90s. But I haven't ever held it to any kind of hard scrutiny either. So,
if anybody's curious, the two films I have above it in the 90s are Robert Altman's Shortcuts and Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas. Those are the two films that I have above it. But I mean, to your point, Davey, there is skill in making you feel that way. Like, you know what I mean? That is a filmmaker effectively doing his or her job. So, in terms of not having a critical eye, I mean, you know, it's a taste thing, and I also want to respond to the red coat thing as well. And I can see that point. Like, that is certainly, it was a risky move. I'm okay with it. Like, I think it happens infrequently enough to not be distracting. It's almost, I think it falls in line with what I was talking about earlier, with it being details. Like, I think it's an interesting detail that is used occasionally so that it's not, so that it avoids being heavy-handed. That's sort of like how I look at it. And there is something nice about being able to track this girl, you know, throughout the movie, and her sort of popping up. It was a very bold and creative idea that seemed very out of line. Because what I think Spielberg is great at, almost like Tarantino, he's great because of his knowledge of film history. Like, he's able to take all the good parts of what he's learned, you know, from, you know, the films of his youth, the 40s and the 50s, and, you know, that's where he learned storytelling, and, you know, build upon that. And, you know, like, even like the serials that he would watch as a kid, you know, like those shorts and things, adventure serials and things, those were very influential. So I think that he's very good in terms of amalgamating all the best aspects of film history, and I think that's part of the reasons why I respond to him as a filmmaker. You know, having 5 films of his that he directed on my top 100. So did I respond to you, Davey? Do you feel like fully?
No, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so it's time for my number one, and in this case, I'm going to reveal something sort of big here. So it is. I already talked about how Chinatown is my second favorite movie of all time, and so because you asked me to do the Spielberg top 5, I have to, in fairness, reveal my favorite movie of all time, the only one above Chinatown, and it's a movie that I grew up with that made me want to be a filmmaker. You probably figured it out right now. Talk about a perfect movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it doesn't have the gravitas that Schindler's List does, but it doesn't need it to be a perfect movie. It's I think the success of a movie is just determined by, does the filmmaker achieve his goals, and I think that this is a movie where every moment pushes the next one forward. It is a great screenplay. It is a great execution. Everything, all the technical aspects are really strong, from the famous score to the cinematography to the stunt coordination. It changed how we view action movies, quite frankly. It changed how action movies were shot. I wish Michael Bay would look at this movie more frequently and use how to learn off-screen space more effectively instead of shooting action scenes the way that he does. And just for a second, I also want to talk about Harrison here. We talk, I don't think, I talk about all-time great performances in Spielberg films. We talked about it a little bit. And I think Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones needs to be considered here. It is not, it doesn't come naturally to create such an iconic character. This is something that he created from scratch as a character. The details, the nuance, played it in several different films at this point to perfection. And he is not perfect. He's not the typical hero that you might see in films from the 30s and 40s. Like, he's not just the white hat. He's flawed. He's greedy. He's complicated, but he's also intelligent, and you want to root for him. And he was voted in AFI's list of heroes and villains as the greatest hero of all time. And I don't think that enough credit goes to Harrison Ford for creating this character, as an actor and as a performance. So I would put him on my list of all-time great Spielberg performances. I think the two of them, creating this character, we take it for granted now. And I think this is something that acting is about, even though it's an action movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, it's also romantic. It's taut. I was like, it's my favorite movie of all time, so I can't say enough good things about it. So, Davey Joe, you had Schindler's List above this, so what do you think?
It's great. It's a great movie. It's definitely a great movie, and I haven't seen it in a while, so maybe I should go back and watch it again. But I do. I don't
want to reveal too much, but you might have to.
Okay.
Because it might be coming up on our list.
I'll hold off then. I'm looking forward to it.
Jay Money, what about you?
It's almost like I would echo some things that Davey Joe just said about having a hard time being able to judge this kind of movie. I feel like for especially guys like us of a certain age, this is a movie that was iconic about a character that we all aspired to be. It's hard for me to say anything about this movie other than the fact that it was such an influential sort of role model movie for me as a child growing up, and I feel like there's a lot of other people that probably feel similarly about the character of Indiana Jones and also about the series in general. Especially for me, I would say he was an archetypal sort of father figure, and I come from a divorced family. So in a lot of ways,
was a big brother kind of guy.
Yeah, there's something about it that's familial, and it's also something about it that's aspirational. And I think that a lot of people definitely.
But there's craft in that, in creating that experience for us. That's not an accident.
Absolutely, and I can totally see your points about why more credit could be due for that. It's hard for me to separate my emotional connection to this movie, both from my childhood and from how I think about it now, from the craft of film. It's just like this is an experience for me that supersedes film one way or the other.
Well, I think that says a lot about the film.
Sure. Absolutely.
So, what would we got a few minutes left? What would Davey Joe had Schindler's List as his favorite. Where are you on this list? I'm done my list. Where are you landing?
My favorite of the movies that you mentioned.
No, not necessarily. Your favorite Spielberg?
Well, honestly, Jaws is really towards the top of any of my lists. I mean, I really like Jaws quite a lot, and I guess I would say that I respect it a lot too. So that's why it might rise above some of the other things that we've talked about. But I mean, you also picked a lot of fairly good movies, and you picked a lot of relatively early things from Spielberg. I'll note that you sent me a lot of images that you didn't use. I don't know if that was to throw me off or if
That
it's
was a
something
red
else.
herring. Yes, that was a red herring.
Okay, so because I was kind of curious how you might have felt about like Sugarland Express or about some of the other ones that we didn't discuss.
Well, I did. I mean, like, there's interesting that you brought that up because I did want to talk about that a little bit because I mean, like, I was sort of tempted to do a top 5 of Spielberg performances, and if I did that, I mean, like, I think Ralph Fiennes would be number 1. I think Harrison Ford would be number 2. I think Liam Neeson's I'm sorry, Daniel Day-Lewis and Lincoln's number 3.
Okay.
And he's the one that won the Oscar. Liam Neeson is number 4 in Schindler's List, so that's 2 from Schindler's List. And number 5, greatest performances in a Spielberg movie, Goldie freaking Hawn in Sugarland Express.
Yeah, she's great in that movie.
I mean, it's so unexpected. And she had already won an Oscar before she did this role, but it's such a complete, unusual performance. Like it's you know, like such a detailed characterization that and you know, another sort of mental illness type of thing. And you could probably draw a line between her performance in this and Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters. And I don't know why this movie doesn't get enough credit. Like it's not in a top 5 that I'm going to put, but certainly Goldie Hawn's performance, you know, I don't understand why it doesn't have the staying power. You know, like, it was a smaller movie for Spielberg, certainly. Like, Jaws was huge. It was the film he made right before Jaws. But it's a good movie and a great performance.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's often overlooked. It's the kind of thing that you talk about if you take a class on Spielberg or if you talk about Spielberg in general, but I don't think people really are aware that it even exists.
I could teach that class.
You could teach that class.
Davey Joe, have you seen Sugarland Express?
I haven't.
Yeah, there you go.
You've got a list of things. We got so many things that we keep referring to that eventually during these sound offs, you have to like let us know if you ever go back and watch some of these movies.
Okay.
All right, guys, we got like 2 minutes left. I want to have a little quick evening summary. How did you guys feel like tonight went? Davey?
I thought it went very, very well. I had a good time.
J Money?
I was also happy with tonight's performance.
I don't know if you guys are just blowing smoke, because but I actually feel like tonight was awesome. Like, I'm not. I would tell you otherwise, as you know. I'm pretty blunt, but I mean, so if you're watching this sound off now and have not watched our discussion on Bridge of Spies, The Joneses, or Apocalypse Now, I highly recommend them. And I don't always say that. This is it's one of the first times that I've said that.
It's literally the first time you've ever recommended them. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I like a lot of our episodes, but tonight it felt particularly detailed. Like, I feel like we really got into it with a lot of these movies in spite of our limited time. I think, other good episodes that we have include Hot Pursuit, which is a long one. I really like the fortune cookie discussion. But I think this is the one night, ever since we started splitting them up, that I feel like all 4 of these segments, were awesome.
Excellent. Very good.
Great, man.
Do you guys have anything you want to add to that while I pull up the next graphic?
I mean, it's always a lot of pressure.
Anyway, that's just about the amount of time I needed. So thanks. You guys need to get better at vamping. Honestly, I really need a little help here. As I've said a couple times, next time our next broadcast is going to be on Monday, November 9th, starting 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. And our current feature for review is going to be Spectre, the new James Bond film, which means on the sound off, which we're going to do, let's see, let me do the math. I think it's going to be somewhere in the line of like 10:30 Eastern.
Yeah.
5:30, 10:30 East, 7:30 Pacific, around there. We're going to do the sound off, and in which I'm going to do the top 5 Bond films. As it seems appropriate, given that we're going to review Spectre with Daniel Craig and Christoph Waltz and et cetera, Christoph Waltz. So that's next time, November 9th. We're going to have an indie spotlight and a classic as well. Stay tuned to our Facebook page for more information on those. It is now 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 o'clock for those losers back on the East Coast. So it's getting late. Perfect time. Exactly an hour. Time to say goodnight. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.